What's going on, everyone? Welcome back to another Talking Freight. In the last episode, we talked about how to use freight data to evaluate spend by your suppliers. In this episode, we'll go over 5 steps to build and implement dynamic routing for your inbound freight. So let's talk dynamic routing for inbound freight. As explained by Inbound Logistics, the Inbound Freight Routing Guide defines carrier selection and mode of transportation criteria for vendors and suppliers to send freight to your business. With the evolution of technology, more shippers have moved toward digital routing guides, which opens the door to a new realm of possibilities: dynamic routing for inbound freight. Shippers need to understand the problems with maintaining a simple, stagnant guide, how dynamic solutions give vendors more options, and how to implement a digital dynamic guide as well. So let's talk about stagnant routing processes leading to problems. A static inbound freight routing guide was a traditional resource for managing 3 to 5 carriers and a handful of dock deliveries. Unfortunately, the complexity of the average supply chain has grown extensively. The average shipment may see more than 200 touch points from manufacturing to delivery at your location. And the diverse group of vendors working with your organization may follow different processes for scheduling inbound freight and shipping. However, avoiding these issues through dynamic routing of inbound freight offers many advantages over traditional static routing guides. Next, dynamic routing for inbound freight gives vendors flexibility. Today's supply chains have access to a deep pool of data. GPS, real-time location services, Bluetooth, RFID, and wireless technologies provide a means of generating and aggregating data. Such data may reveal insights into current operations, helping truckers, carriers, and shippers work together to adjust to changing environments. Any asset or operation can benefit from dynamic routing for inbound freight management. Since all operations have a route in inbound freight, deploying dynamic routing gives shippers control over inbound freight spend while providing vendors more options to utilize. Dynamic routing is also about much more than just managing shipping schedules. Dynamic inbound routing processes can help with allowances for freight costs, take advantage of freight consolidation, and put your negotiated rates on the table for vendors' use. In addition, the ability to backbill vendors for routing failures remains a critical component of using a dynamic routing guide. So here are 5 steps to developing and implementing a dynamic routing program. Finding the best path to implement dynamic routing programs is not always clear. While differences may exist within your organization and the volume of vendors you do business with can make sharing simple guides via the cloud difficult at best, to streamline the implementation of dynamic routing programs, shippers should follow these steps. Number 1, balance your routing guide approach. Balancing your routing guide means ensuring all aspects of your organization dedicate the same attention and time to unique inbound shipping issues. Also, the inbound freight routing guide should take advantage of the resources available to each vendor based on location and size. Number 2, think mode over carrier. When creating your dynamic routing guide for inbound freight management, it is essential to think about mode over carrier-specific criteria. Even with preferred carriers, specific modes may offer discounted rates, resulting in lower inbound freight costs and better profitability. Number 3, base the guide on your logistics strategy. Your inbound freight routing guide, although dynamic and scalable, should also align with your overall logistics strategy. In other words, it should take advantage of all available resources at your disposal to streamline operations and inbound freight scheduling. Number 4, use technology to automate guide navigation. Modern technology, including a transportation management system or TMS, can help shippers automate the processes for dynamic routing for inbound freight. As a result, the guide lives within the platform for managing freight itself, ensuring vendors have access to appropriate information and only successfully schedule inbound freight deliveries within the guidelines and rules within the guide. Number 5, Communicate with vendors and suppliers. Any plan for launching a new dynamic routing guide for inbound freight management is only as effective as the number and compliance of vendors that utilize it. As a result, it's crucial to communicate with vendors and suppliers of changes to your traditional routing guide and why its changes are occurring. So here are my final thoughts. Bring your inbound freight routing guide into the modern age now. Supply chain management technology is evolving at a phenomenal rate, and shippers have an excellent opportunity to expand the ability of vendors to handle inbound freight scheduling and increase available carriers through a modern TMS. Ultimately, the dynamic routing capabilities ensure shippers tender all inbound shipments for the appropriate mode, transportation time, costs, carrier, and other unique considerations for such shipments. Well, that's it for this episode. Have a great week.
Hold up, before you go, make sure you hit that subscribe button. You'll get up-to-the-minute info from Fast Freight 5, educational material from Talking Freight, and the best voices in the industry from the Freight Project podcast.